Hey guys, today we're going to be making healthy chocolate banana bread, and I'm actually doubling this recipe, so the ingredient quantities I'm going to be using is going to be double what the recipe, which I'll link down below, states. So I had a little mishap, and I was going to make each batter in a separate bowl, but I mistakenly dumped the doubled amount of sugar into one of the bowls. So I changed gears a little bit, but that's okay. So for the dry ingredients, the recipe states 1.5 cups of whole wheat flour, 1/2 cup unsweetened dark cocoa powder, but I'm just using regular old grocery store cocoa powder. If you don't want to spend the money on the really fancy cocoa powder or you don't have it available, I've made this recipe many times before with this cocoa powder and it's been delicious. Also calls for some baking powder and some salt. In terms of the wet ingredients, I used vanilla flavored Greek yogurt, which is what the recipe states. I just got the Great Value, no fat one in one of those little containers, and that was about 1/2 cup. The container states that it's 5.3 ounces, but in reality, it's probably closer to 4.5. So I would say just use the whole container. It'll be fine. Now this recipe calls for 1/2 cup of honey. However, honey is pricey. And I know that honey is healthy for you, and that's one of the reasons that this banana bread is healthier than one that requires sugar. But I do usually substitute sugar. And the way to convert the specified amount of honey to an amount of white sugar is for every cup of honey called for, it's going to be 1.25 cups of white sugar. However, since the yogurt we used was sweetened, we opted to just use 1 cup of white sugar. And I accidentally dumped that in the batter that was supposed to be exclusively for the first loaf, so I had to change gears. Also calls for an egg per loaf, some vanilla, some milk, and it calls for 1 cup of mashed ripe bananas. And then luckily it recommends about 2 large. I usually only use 2 bananas unless they are really small per each loaf, and it always turns out great. And most excitingly, each loaf calls for 1 cup of dark chocolate chips. Again, I'm not doing anything fancy. I just got the Great Value ones. If you have the budget or are really, really picky and you want something darker, it'll probably be even better. So I'm going to mix my dry ingredients together because I already got all of my wet ingredients mixed together. And the amounts might look astronomical, but again, that's because I'm doubling. So a little bit of quick math. 1.5 teaspoons doubled is a full tablespoon because 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. This baking powder is really fighting back. But you know what? We're going to get through it, and we're going to make some delicious banana bread. So when would this banana bread be appropriate to eat? So it's chocolate, and to me, it kind of gives like brownie vibes. So I would say it's really good to eat as a dessert. But it is banana bread, and it is a little bit healthier than perhaps a more traditional banana bread. So I would even argue that this banana bread would work for breakfast if you threw it with some natural peanut butter. Probably what I'm going to do in the coming days. It's also really good after dinner if you just kind of want something sweet, or if you sort of had an early dinner. It's even good as a snack, I would say, because it is pretty substantial. So now I'm going to put the whole wheat flour in, and it is 3 cups. I'm really thankful that we were finally able to find whole wheat flour. At the beginning of all of this stuff, we were not able to find any flour, and then we just kind of stumbled onto a bunch of white flour via a really messed up Instacart order. So we had that floating around, but we just could not get our hands on any whole wheat flour, which was unfortunate because we have a bread maker and I really like to make whole wheat bread in there. And also, we like to add whole wheat flour to our pizza dough, which we also make in the bread maker. And we thought we added it to the cinnamon bun dough, but it turns out that we don't. Okay, so I have one more cup of flour left, and then I'm going to put the probably second most exciting ingredient, the cocoa powder. And just as kind of an important side note, this recipe instructs you to, beat the ingredients together and blah, blah, blah. I have never done that. I don't even own a hand mixer, and it's come out fine. So if the only tools you have in your kitchen are a whisk and a bowl or two, that's perfect. This will be perfect. Okay, so I have my 3 cups of whole wheat flour, again doubled. Now I'm going to put in my cup of cocoa powder. It's a little scary using this much cocoa powder. Like, I've never doubled this recipe, but the reason I'm doubling it is because several months ago we so my husband and I were walking around our neighborhood and we stumbled upon a very nice sized but still manageably sized chest freezer, and it said that it was free and it was still working. There was a note written on it in Sharpie. So, to help our neighbors out, obviously, we took it and we've been really enjoying it. And one of the things that I really love having in the freezer is some kind of baked good, because, sometimes you really want that for the upcoming week, but you don't necessarily want to put the effort into making it. And honestly, if you're getting all the dishes dirty, if you're turning on the oven, you might as well just double it. There's no reason not to. So we're going to have one of these in the freezer, and we're going to have one of these for this week. Okay. Just making sure that I've got everything. I already put my tablespoon of baking powder, and I already put my teaspoon of salt. So that's it for the dry ingredients. I'm going to grab a whisk. I'll be right back. So one thing I'm not usually very good about is mixing my wets and dries separate. What I was planning on doing for this video was integrating all of the wets together, making them one, and then putting the dries in the same bowl. But again, that fell through because I messed up my wets. So I just have one bowl with the doubled amount of dry and one bowl with the doubled amount of wets. Okay, let's see if I can mix that a little bit better. My cocoa powder towards the bottom was very clumpy. And I guess that's just because it's been hanging out in there for a little bit, but I think it'll be okay once I get it mixed in with the wets. So here are my dries. And now I'm going to pour the wets oh, wait a minute. Yes, I'm going to pour. No, let's pour the dries into the wets. I feel like that's a little less messy. Here are my wets. Again, looks like a ton because it is doubled. And one thing I wanted to comment on. So eggs are an ingredient in this recipe. Typically, we usually use either flax eggs or chia eggs in lieu of chicken eggs or any other animal eggs for that matter. And it's because we usually have, and I say usually, I mean always, have flaxseed, ground flaxseed or chia seed in the house. It's very, very simple to make flax or chia eggs. For every egg called for in a recipe, you use 1 tablespoon of either flax or chia and 3 tablespoons of water. Now, the recipes for flax and chia eggs do usually tell you to let the egg sit for a little bit to get set up, but I've only made one thing where it was really, really crucial that that happened. In a bread like this, I've honestly thrown the flax right in there, thrown the water right in there, and just mixed all of it together at the same time. And it's been delicious. So I would encourage you to make this bread even if you're not interested in using eggs or you don't have any eggs. I'm wondering if there's a way to make some kind of egg substitute out of hemp seed. And if you know about that, please tell me, because I bought hemp seed for something what feels like a million years ago, and we don't really use it at all, and I do not want it to go to waste. So if anything like that exists, I would love to become privy to it, because I need to use that hemp seed up. So now I'm just mixing it. I'm just making sure that all of the wet is basically soaked up by all of the dry. Another tip I have for making this bread is a potato masher works wonderfully as a banana masher. I religiously use a potato masher for that exact purpose. In fact, I don't even, I feel like we only have a potato masher to mash bananas, because bananas are used not only in banana bread, obviously. They're used in a lot of different kind of healthy alternative recipes, maybe to substitute for like oil or an extra egg or something. And it's just much easier to mash them like that. And again, we don't eat much potatoes. I mean, I think the last time I used the potato actually, I was going to say the last time I used the potato masher to mash potatoes was Thanksgiving, but that's not true, because my sister or my mom used their electric mixer or their immersion blender. Okay, so this is all mixed. So the last step, I'm just going to scoot this bowl out of the way. Last step is to put in the chocolate chips. So this bag, this humble great value bag, is 2 cups. And this calls for 1 cup plus more for garnishing. So I think what I'm going to do is put in a cup, see how it is, put aside, I don't know, probably 1/4 of a cup, and then maybe dump the rest in, depending on how chocolatey you want it. Might have to consult with my assistant. I don't quite know how chocolatey he wants it, but as I said, this recipe definitely, even though it's a banana bread, definitely gives me brownie vibes. Like this eats like a brownie. This, I mean, I would say tastes like a brownie. Like I've had, I have eaten brownies before, and this is brown. Okay. So we definitely need more than this 1 cup. I see none of the chocolate chips, and I feel like they're pretty. So what I'm going to do is pour 3/4 of a cup. If I can, there it is. Pour 3/4 of a cup in here. Oh, or I guess just all of it. Okay, I guess we're not going to have any to garnish. That's okay. We'll figure it out. See, I don't understand, because this said it was about 2 cups, and this is definitely only 1 cup and 3/4. Like, that's not about 2 cups. That's quite far from 2 full cups. That's not 2 cups. Need a refund. All right, so this is well combined. So now comes the task of dividing the batter and putting it into the 2 separate pans. But so what if the situation arises where you want to double it, but you don't have 2 standard loaf pans, which is exactly the situation that I'm in. Well, I'm glad you asked. So obviously one of the loaves is going to be cooked in my loaf pan. And I greased it, and I'm just going to cook it according to the instructions. So the temperature is 350, and it gets cooked for 50-ish minutes. In my memory, this has been faithful to the amount of time. If you're using actual eggs, be super careful. You want to make sure that it's cooked through. Obviously, the recipe is a little more flexible with flax or chia eggs, because even if it's like not 100% done, you will not get sick. So for the second loaf, I'm going to use my Pyrex square 8x8 pan, and this comes with a lid, which is a lifesaver in the fridge. So if you are using a glass pan with a recipe that traditionally calls for a metal one, based on online research and testing earlier in the summer, you lower the oven's temperature 25 degrees, and the cook time should be about the same. So the amount of batter, the loaf that we're going to put in the glass pan will be cooked at 325 for about 50 minutes. Feel free to check on it sooner. But when I made a different banana bread recipe in both of these pans, this one took the same amount of time as this one. It was just cooked 25 degrees lower. All right, so now comes the really exciting task of deciding how much half is. So the whole reason that I wanted to make it in 2 separate ones, which again I highly, highly recommend you do, is because of this problem. Can you stop it and help me divide it? So after careful division of the batter, this is what we have ended up with, and it is basically half and half. As I mentioned, we're going to cook this glass one at 325 for 50 minutes, and we're going to cook the metal one at 350 for about 50 minutes. Also, please, 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 if you're using actual eggs, make sure everything is cooked. Toothpick test would work great. Unfortunately, we don't have toothpicks. I usually do a fork test, which is also very, very telling as to whether the bread is done. These are going to be delicious. I'm going to freeze the one that's more loaf-shaped, and we're going to enjoy this one this week. I hope you try it, and if you try it, let me know if you enjoyed it. Bye.